United States President Joe Biden and his Republican challenger, former President Donald Trump, have now clashed in their first debate of the 2024 presidential polls. The debate was off to a fiery start when the two candidates did not greet each other with a customary handshake and stood just a feet apart at their respective podiums. They merely exchanged glances and set the night for a session of pointed exchanges. Now, there were points during the debate when Joe Biden struggled to convey his thoughts and was even caught stuttering a few times. Listen in.
Dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare, we're trying to provide housing for Black Americans. The impact on the
Now, meanwhile, former President Barack Obama has tweeted about the debate and has said that bad debate nights do happen. He also said a lot of things still remain at stake in November as the competition is between someone who knows right from wrong and someone who lies through his teeth for his own benefit. Well, let's listen into some of the main highlights of the Biden-Trump presidential debate.
Remember, more people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it. More people died under his administration than our administration, and we were right in the middle of it.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one. This guy told Trump, do whatever you want, and do whatever you want. And that's exactly what Trump did to Putin, encourage him, do whatever you want. And he went in. And listen to what he said when he went in. He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to reestablish. Kyiv, and he in fact didn't do it at all. He wasn't able to get it done, and they've lost thousands and thousands of troops.
Ukraine should have never happened. He talks about all this stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you.
This guy told.
Joining us at this point is Ambassador Pradeep Kapoor, former diplomat. We also have Rupinder Sachdev, International Affairs expert, live with us. Raymond Vickery, Senior Associate Center for Strategic and International Studies, is joining us live. Also with us is Alok Bansal, Foreign Affairs expert. Let me begin with you first, Raymond Vickery. How is the reaction and response been like to the first United States presidential debate? Who's got an upper hand from what transpired last night?
Well, thanks very much for having me. There's no question that it was not a good night for President Biden. But as Barack Obama has noted, he had a bad first debate. Ronald Reagan had a bad first debate, and it's not over till it's over, and we've got 5 months to go. I thought the most telling part of it was really the failure to call out the many lies of Donald Trump that he was perpetrating. I mean, he was saying that Trump, had very little to do with what happened on January 6th, when even his own Republicans say that he called the mob together, lit the fuse. He said it was going to be wild and go on up there. There were just lies after lies saying it was the greatest economy ever. That just is not true. The whole business about the pandemic, the fact is that then President Trump said, yeah, it was just like the flu. It's not going to be a bad thing. And it was a total failure of leadership. What bothered me most about it was really the failure to come to grips with the key questions of world peace. Donald Trump, of course, had said, if you don't pay up, then Russia can do what the hell ever it wants to do in regard to NATO countries. Is that going to be his attitude in regard to India and China? It's completely transactional. India doesn't do what Donald Trump thinks they should do, then China can do whatever the hell they want to. No, we've got to be able to have mechanisms and leadership to build peace. And I don't think that came out at all. But it was the first time around. There'll be another debate, and there's a lot to go. There are many other issues which President Trump lied: abortion, climate change, so forth. So we'll see what happens. But it's not off to a good start for the Democrats.
Okay, it's not off to a good start is what you're clearly saying. But let me quickly draw in here Ambassador Pradeep Kapoor. Ambassador Pradeep Kapoor, can Joe Biden recover from here? Can he spring a surprise? Can he turn around? And do you acknowledge that it was certainly a bad start for him?
Thank you very much, Uday. It is a very difficult situation, not only for the Democrats, not only for Joe Biden, but it is a very difficult situation for the entire country. US is currently facing a very serious crisis, a crisis of leadership, a crisis of vision, a crisis of democracy. Sitting here in Washington, D.C., and observing what's happening today, on the one hand, you have a leader who's past his prime, age has caught up. It's not catching up, it has caught up. If I have to work as a bureaucrat with a leader like that, what sort of confidence will I have to go into his office and deal with him and expect some good, commanding sort of, analysis or understanding or execution or delivery or thought or vision? On the other hand, you have a leader who has been caught out lying blatantly and has other misdemeanors. There are so many criminal cases, civil cases pending against him. Now, what has the US come to? If this is the choice facing the ordinary American citizen, the ordinary voter, and if I am an ordinary voter, I will be quite sad. I'll be very pained that my country is in such a bad shape that the politics is totally fractured. There are such deep divisions between the Republicans and the Democrats. They cannot talk to each other. They cannot sit across the aisle and discuss and see what are in the larger interest of the country. The only thing that they keep on doing is fighting like cats and dogs all the time. There is no national view, national consensus, national interests. It's only party interests or my own interests or no interest at all. And you are, even under the aspect of foreign policy, well, I would say that, if I now look at it, the entire situation from the viewpoint of an Indian geopolitical or geostrategical person, who is a better bet of the two? Well, I guess Donald Trump would score just very, very marginally, very thinly over Biden, partly because the Democrats do not ever stop needling India, even when they understand that in terms of geostrategy, in terms of geopolitics, in terms of the vision of the world, in terms of the stakes for the US in the world, in terms of the stakes for US in Indochina, in terms of the threats which are facing the US from China, from terrorism, from drugs, from so many other areas, the only solid player on the canvas today in the world, other than the Western world, which has some capacity to support the US, but with the sort of opposition that is ranged against it today on the global scene, India is one player which can tilt the scales in its favor. And if you keep on going after that country also, every now and then over issues which you do not understand at all about human rights there or about other issues, whereas you are not able to manage those issues in your own country. And you talk about those issues in countries like India, which on a neutral analysis would probably be faring much better than you. So it's a very sad situation for the country and for the world, because America is the most powerful country in the world. In many ways, it is the most important country for the world. It has led it from the front in so many good ways and in not so many good ways, which I have seen personally during my career as a diplomat in so many countries. But the other choices could have been much worse. So from that perspective, to come down to the America that is today, it pains my heart. Back to you there.
Okay, let me take that across to Alok Bansal. Alok Bansal, it pains Ambassador Kapoor's heart looking at this scenario for both parties currently. But there are calls from within the Democrats, after this poor performance of Joe Biden for a possible replacement. Now, is that likely at this stage or completely unlikely? And what does this really, foresay about the result that we'll be getting later this year?
See, firstly, I think the debate was symptomatic of the deep polarization that exists in US society. The way the basic civilities have been given a go by, no shaking of hands, people standing at far off, the type of comments that were made, that shows that not only the candidates, but even the society is deeply polarized. And as a result, the impact of the debates on the ultimate results is likely to be minimal. Because while President Biden actually did not perform well, but as far as the Democrat supporters are concerned, I think their fear of Trump would probably help them to come together. But I think the talk that is going on within the Democratic Party of finding a replacement is, I think, worthwhile, because I think never in the history of US has such old candidates been the main contenders for the president's slot. And I think his physical ability to handle or shoulder this responsibility is a big positive, and that would drive away the voters. So maybe Democratic caucus, Democratic leaders would probably come to some sort of a situation. Maybe they could talk it out with President Biden and tell him that, well, there was a time when he had talked about one-term presidency. I think he needs to give way to somebody younger and dynamic. If they don't want, as far as India is concerned, both have pluses. I personally feel that within US, there is a bipartisan consensus that India needs to be engaged. India is the par with which US needs to do business. And despite that, of course, there are problems with both parties. Donald Trump is so anti-immigration. Sometimes he feels that Indians are getting a go by, they are coming by. So there are problems with Trump. With Democrats, of course, their so-called human rights agenda very often pricks and they find fault with government policies, knowing fully well that Indian government is a democratic dispensation and committed to pluralism and democracy, core values that US stands by. And I think because of that, irrespective of who comes to power, I don't think so there'll be a very major dent as far as Indo-US relations are concerned. Indo-US relations are driven by common values and bolstered by the rising Indian diaspora. I believe that these are the two factors which keep bolstering Indo-US relationship, and it will go from strength to strength in times to come.
Okay, let me take that across to Robinder Sachdev now. Robinder, do you also acknowledge that Donald Trump has certainly come out top in this particular presidential debate and contest? There are calls from within the Democratic circles of Joe Biden to drop out, to realize that he is too old for this. Will he heed to those calling for his exit?
Thank you, Uday. I think from this debate, what comes out is that Biden is wounded. I mean, there is no doubt to that. And, there's a saying also, when you're in a hole, stop digging. So maybe Biden will really have to do that, one. Secondly, you see, while going into this debate yesterday, both these candidates are more or less similar to each other in terms of the polling which is going on, or maybe Trump is a bit ahead or something like that, right? So Biden is already in low numbers. This issue of age and effectiveness has been hounding him. When he went into this debate, this issue should have been, pushed aside, and his demeanor should have, kind of sidelined this issue. It should have been more on the meatier issues, and he should have, gone after Trump on the policy or the topics or the failures of Trump. Biden could now do that. So coming out of this debate, I think Biden is wounded. The Democrats may continue the way they are. It'll be a tough and an uphill battle. The reason being, it's not that the Democrats will not still vote for the Democrats. When they're going into this debate, they each wanted to convince the swing voters or the undecideds, right? So there's a big chunk of that. Secondly, the Democrat organization, the Democrat cadre, the leaders themselves are and will be more demoralized to go out and campaign aggressively. See, when you see victory in sight, you get more, adrenaline, more energy to go out and do more. The MAGA Trump momentum will therefore rise on that side. So Biden is wounded. As to the calls which are coming for him to step down, I actually do think it will help the Democrats hugely if they change the candidate. The reason being, one again, today seems to be a day of phrases. When life gives you a lemon, make lemonade. Democrats have been handed a lemon. They should make a lemonade. They should create an opportunity out of it. How? Okay, how they select whichever the next could be, right, will be a process which will play out over the next 1 or 2 months. In that period, the media attention will be more on the Democrats, who, what, where, etc., right? At least in the mainstream media. Trump will be deprived of that oxygen, that is one. Secondly, the Democrat base or the leaders and all will get energized. There'll be new hope. And even the people who are observers, the voters, will be anticipating, okay, let us see who is the candidate who comes out of the Democratic Convention on August 27 or whatever. So whichever candidate comes up, and 2 months is enough time in today's day and age, given the age of social media and instead this thing. Yes, the challenge will be that the candidate who comes, he or she will have to marshal enough money and should have the grassroots machinery, etc. But all that, I think, can come together. It will be a gamble that the Democrats have to take. My sense is that going ahead, this path is a hole in which they are, and no amount. See, what can Biden do to dispel this image that he's ineffective? Can he start doing 100 push-ups on CNN or Fox News and say, look here, I'm able and fine? He cannot do that. And this has been an impression building up. So unfortunately for the Democrats, I think if they really, of course they want to win and all, but if I were a strategist, that would be my take on it. Sure, there can be different views and etc. There will be turmoil within the Democratic Party. There'll be several contenders who will throw their hat into the ring. Kamala Harris, would she, not she? There will be, heartburns within them. But of the 5 or 6 aspirants who say that, okay, fine, I could take up the mantle, and Biden would obviously say, I'll support whoever comes up. There will be new hope and a new momentum and a new energy. Else, the way things are right now, there is fatigue. Fatigue will set in. It's demoralizing. Just imagine your campaign and you see that your leader for whom you're working is kind of low on energy and, has been kneecapped, handicapped, whatever. And those are valid questions. So mix of these questions, to my mind, seems that even let there be turmoil, let there be chaos, whichever way, as long as the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, can figure out a smart, fair, transparent way to get the new, nominee in, it will be advantageous to the party. All media attention will be on them. People will be looking, the Democrats especially, and especially the swing voters and the Hispanics, another thing, will be looking to see, okay, who's the next guy or the person, who could give me hope. And also, the constituencies which are, and Trump will be, by the way, denied the opportunity to attack Biden. Trump won't know who's the new candidate coming, and sure, he can go on criticizing Democrat, policies, but he will not have a direct target to hit. Sleepy Joe and whatever, etc. Of course, he'll keep on harping about the deep state and, all of that, but he will not have a target to aim at.
Yes, Raymond Vikri, what are Democrats saying in the United States of America? Where do they go from here? Are there going to be calls for Donald Trump to step down at the convention that lies ahead? Will this chorus continue, or is the party going to unite, as Barack Obama said, and just say it was one off day and hope for a better showing the next presidential debate, because this is just the first one?
Well, I think, first of all, you have to distinguish between a person being articulate on a particular occasion. There's no secret that Joe Biden overcame speech difficulties early in his life. He stuttered, and he fought and he overcame it. Now, is he as articulate as Donald Trump? No, but that's not the question here. The question is substance, and the question is how well Joe Biden has done. He's done a great job. Just look at what has happened in regard to India. The ambassador says there's some slight advantage to Trump in regard to U.S.-India relations. I don't think anything could be further from the truth. If you look at what the Biden administration has done, it's been all in with India. There are more exercises that take place between the U.S. and India militarily than anybody else. There are agreements now to be able to service ships in India. It's an all-in with Joe Biden. Look what happened to with Joe Biden at the G20. So you have to look at substance rather than just a particular debate performance. And you can't listen to a guy who's a carnival circus barker like Donald Trump and say, oh, well, he's doing a lot better in arousing up the populace, and say that, yeah, therefore he's a better president. I mean, Trump drove our economy into the ditch. He wants to bring back the Smoot-Hawley tariffs and have isolation in regard to the economic relations. That is not the way in which you should be able to choose a president. And if it's on one debate, then yeah, no, that's all is lost. And let's look at this issue of age. I'm 82 years old. I'm older than Joe Biden. It's not a question of age. It's a question of substance and what somebody does. And in that regard, don't count the United States out. Don't count us out and say, oh, we're divided and we can't do. There have been people who've said that in the past, and they've all come out wrong. And when it comes to people criticizing each other, friends, good democracies ought to be able to criticize. You can criticize our human rights record, justly so. And just because something is said that everything's not perfect in India doesn't mean we're not good friends and the closest of partners. So I think, yeah, we got some difficulties politically. Everybody does. But as I said,
look at the substance. Don't look at just superficial things like a debate, says Raymond Vickery. Ambassador Kapoor, your counter to that, your response to that, and you know, where do things go now for the Biden presidential campaign henceforth?
Thank you, Uday. First of all, when I was Deputy Secretary Americas in the Ministry of External Affairs in New Delhi, we had done an analysis of the last 50 years of US-India relations at that time. And while the common perception was that the India-US relations were good under Democrats, in the analysis, it turned out that the relations were rather bad with the Democrat presidents and very good with the Republican presidents. And that was a very detailed, factual, point-by-point analysis for each president, each term, each year of our existence and our bilateral relations. Now, that being said, yes, bipartisan consensus is very clear in Washington, D.C., and our relations will continue to advance very, very significantly with either party and with either president today, because it is also in the US interest to forge ahead with relations with India in a very substantive and significant way for the future. The other aspect which I would like to talk about at this point is also about the divisions. Well, Raymond may have mentioned about divisions. Yes, there are divisions. But what I've seen in the US over the last few years that I've been here as a constant resident and watching it from very close quarters, besides the exacerbations of the divisions due to race and so many other factors, today what I see is internal divisions which are very, very serious, not only between Republicans and Democrats, but between Republicans and MAGA Republicans, Make America Great Again Republicans. So you have that sort of division also. There are moderates and people who are following Nikki Haley, for example, who are very hesitant to vote for Trump. If I look at the Democrat side, again, there are very serious divisions between the progressives and what is called the squad here and the moderate Democrats. And those divisions are also very serious on issues like Israel and Palestine. You have a very sizable chunk of the youth, not only the youth, which is American citizens, But the youth which is studying in the universities, which again is creating a lot of havoc in this country in terms of having demonstrations, and universities facing a very, very difficult time even in conducting regular classes or in providing security and a safe atmosphere for the students to learn. A beacon of leadership in the education system in the world is falling apart on issues like that. So from that perspective, I would like to say that there is need for a lot of introspection, there is need for reflection, there is need for thinking about what is the right way to move ahead from where we are currently and how we should get there.
Okay.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.